Hello there, everyone. It feels so good to be here with you today. You're going to love what we're going to be chatting about today. And you're going to hear what you need to hear to make the changes that you need to in 2026. You're going to get a picture of what you need and see what works. And I hold a vision of you, a picture of your greatness for an extraordinary 2026. I'm Katie Gostaspi, and I'm happy to be with you on this live. Hey, look, a lot of you watch this stuff on replay. And I get it. We can't always show up live because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and it's a Tuesday. I understand. However, be here live if you're able to, because you're able to chat with me on the feature. And you're asking your questions and getting answers, and you're showing up in the world rather than saying, I'll do it later. Okay. That's really super important. So consider that for what it's worth. And whether I'm being with you on the replay or live, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So here's the deal. I never quite fit in my life. As a scrawny little immigrant kid in Indiana, we never ate the same foods as other people. I've always said this. Back then in 1979, yogurt was not a thing. Yoplait, Dannon, whatever, Stonyfield Farms, not a thing. Everyone thought we were eating curdled milk. So it really made me feel like I didn't fit in. Um, let's see what else. I didn't look like anyone else, you guys. I'm looking down at my notes if you're wondering. So that made me not fit in. I was a scrawny little kid with olive complexion in the Midwest in 1979. No one looked like me. It was ridiculous. And then, of course, I didn't speak a lick of English. Nada, none, zero. And so when my mom and my sister enrolled me in first grade, and all of this I talk about in my third book, Emotional Resonance Factor. So if you want to have a good dive and a good laugh, you can see it there. I just didn't speak any English. So talk about not fitting in, right? And then all those years moving fat forward, I went to law school trying to fit in desperately. And I wanted to find my self confidence because when you don't fit in, what? You're not confident, right? You don't feel like yourself. You don't feel like being yourself is okay. So I had a great career until the day, as a securities lawyer, I had a great career until the day my gastroenterologist said to me, the stress of this job, Ketty, is going to kill you. I laugh now, but in the moment, I was like a single woman who put herself through undergrad and law school as an immigrant, and you want me to quit? But I did. I quit pretty much cold turkey. No real notice, no real conversation with anyone, including the people I worked with. I just slowly emptied my desk. I felt like that was dramatic, but really it was the original quiet quitting, and that was back in 2005. I felt confused, and yet I also felt very empowered quitting. Okay. And that was kind of like this duality. How could I feel confused but empowered when I'm quitting? And no one was reinventing themselves back then, you guys. No one was quitting. It was just an act of like being a renegade and a rebel. So back then, I was also very much ruled by my emotions. At every job I had, while I was consistently promoted and given a better job at the Securities Exchange Commission at a major law firm, my emotions, my negative emotions, really ruled my day and my nights. We used to call them hormones or PMS, but it was beyond that, you guys, which is what we want to talk about today in essence, and why I became an expert in emotional intelligence and leadership coaching combined, using my business background to really run the processes for law firms and organizations, but really understanding this human edge to it is very necessary. That being pulled by my negative emotions created drama in my life and never really allowed me to own what was going on or to understand what was going on. So, what's this all about then? If we take a deep breath and kind of try to like unravel why we want to care about this topic, what it's all about. You exist on this planet. You have a presence on this planet. We all do. So what's life for? We go to work, we come back. And I really want you all to stop and look at this differently in 2026. Like, what could this mean differently for you? We all have some work to do around gaining that sense of peace, acceptance, and legacy. People always want to leave something for their children or for their families. And this is part of that process. Whether you are the leader in the organization, I'm speaking to you, and I'm also speaking to you as an employee. Okay. If you're not in a leadership role, but you're an employee and you're considering something else. Okay. So, what we're really talking about is freedom at the end of the day. If you're an employee, freedom to stay and to want to stay in your role. And if you're an employer or a leader or a law firm managing partner or otherwise, being deliberate enough to really inspire people to want to stay rather than the golden shackles, giving them more money, thinking they're going to want to stay if you pay them more, or kind of browbeating them and having to stay. Tyranny does not work. I say that just about every conversation I have with people. Nothing we do where we force people's hands feels like freedom for them, and it doesn't produce the kind of results that you're going to want to get out of your employees. Definitely not. So I want to give you an overview of what we're doing today and in 2 weeks. These 2 YouTube lives are designed based on a much larger keynote and training I do within corporate America and globally, actually, to allow employers to see what happens when my employees leave. And the cost of it is tremendous in business. For every employee that leaves, a top leader costs millions to replace them. Literally, this is not my numbers. There's statistics and numbers on this out there. And so the cost that's just the numerical cost. We're talking about the entire institutional memory concept and the morale and the culture. So these 2 YouTube lives are designed to help you break free and start to really see with your heart and create the life, the world that you want. And that's you, whether you are a leader in an organization like that or an employee. Okay. I'm going to speak to both of you guys. So no one is gone. Okay. We don't want the gone concept. All right. So today we're going to explore our attachments to negative emotions and a lot of what people call drama. And drama shows up at work all day long. If you are in denial of that, or you're like, what? Why are we talking about this at work? Then the ostrich effect is working to your detriment. You got your head buried in the sand. And that might be because you are the person that's creating the drama and you don't want to look at it. Whoa. Or you might be the leader that's saying, I don't have time for this stuff. I am dealing with running a business, and the employees just all have to fall in line. That's why this time of year is so important to talk about this, you guys. January has momentum. And here's what happens in January. People go back to work, employees go back to work, and they're sort of refreshed, dealt with the whole family baggage, holiday stuff. They're like, okay, I can do this. Leaders go back to work, managers, law firm managers go back to work, and they're like, okay, this is going to be different this year. These employees are going to produce differently. We're going to make our bottom lines even bigger, more revenues, more profits. But the leaders don't stop and think, well, how is this going to happen for this employee pool? And they don't invest the time and the money and the energy into creating that shift so that those employees can really be inspired and look at themselves and want to show up differently and want to impact the bottom line. They're getting a salary regardless. Why should they bother? For a lot of reasons. And so today we're going to talk about what's that drama, explore the negative emotion attachments, and I'll give you some simple tools to really help you recognize and understand those patterns, because that's all they are. They're emotional patterns you got going on. And then in 2 weeks, January 27th, we're going to focus on aligning your body and your mind so your emotions support instead of sabotaging the year that you really want to create, whether you are running the show, the leader at the business, or you're an employee, or you're an entrepreneur too. All of this applies. Human, got this going on. Okay. So your magical life, the year that you want to create starts with mastering what's happening inside in here. Okay. And right here, right now, that's why I'd say show up live. It's an environment of safety that's really filled with love. Love does belong in business, not the mushy romantic love, please. Let's stay real about this. But the love that allows people to show up at work and not quite quit and not ruin the environment and the culture of the business. Okay. So, are you an employee or are you a leader listening to this? I want you to listen through different lenses based on who you are. Based on your role as an employee, I want you to listen for the inside transformation and why you're there and what shows up when you're interacting with your senior leaders and beyond, or with your colleagues, or leading. Okay. And then if you're a leader, to really focus on, oh gosh, what if this is my own? I need to fix this for myself. And how do I turn that lens externally and watch and see what happens with my employees? Now, as a leader, you may be saying, Katie, this is just too much. I can't do all of this. I get it. And yet, all of my clientele are top performers, high achievers. They're getting paid a lot of money. And that's part of the role, that you can juggle multiple hats, and you have to. Okay. And if you're not doing it, then you're not really leading well. End of story. I'm not going to BS you. I'm not here to have a comfortable conversation with you to make you feel good about yourself. You can get that somewhere else. That's cheap and easy. And it's not going to really let you transform. Okay. Talk is cheap. Information is good, but transformation always beats information. So listen, but do. Okay. And that's what's required of you. And you can do that in 2026, because 2026 is the year that you are all going to transform. Okay. So let's define things. Let's define emotions. Emotions are literally just energy in motion. Your energy is flowing through and it's causing a reaction. Emotions are just information. They're data. That's all I want you to do with them. I don't want you to look at them as something mushy and why are we talking about emotions at work? That's not the point, guys. The point is to utilize the fact that we're all human and cultures are created by people and organizations. And that's the environment that you're going to be working in. If you don't like it, change it. Don't go home and grumble and say, well, it's a job. I have to do this because I have a job. Me. That is unsatisfactory. Why? Because you're living in the status quo. You're disempowered. You're not sovereign. And you're certainly not free at that point, right? Whether you're a manager bitching about the people who work for you. Oops, was I allowed to say that? Or whether you're an employee and you're trying to get your stuff together. So if you're joining this chat, I would love for you to type in there why you're here and what about this topic interested you. Love to know so I can actually tailor this for you a little bit if possible. All right. So isn't that interesting though, that emotions are just data and information? So before we dig in, let's talk about why this is so important. Okay. So, like I said, cultures are created by people within an organization. And that's the environment that gets built. Now, I get a lot of clients that come to me and go, forget about the people. Can you just build the process that we need to use to run this law firm better, to run this department in this defense contract firm better, to run this area of the Navy better? I can do any process orientation you want. However, no process works on its own. People run the process. So we have to take into account the people first and have a stable foundation of people in order to run functionally sound processes that's going to yield you results. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and your money, and your head is in the sand, as the ostrich effect says. Okay. So most of us don't need another goal in 2026. What we truly need is freedom from those negative emotional patterns that are quietly just holding you back from living the life and the career that you imagine, whether you're the employee or the employer. Okay. So these emotions truly, truly shape the reality that we have more than we realize. And that's going to show up in our income. How much money are you making? It's going to show up in your careers, whether you're the leader or the employee. and whether you're getting promoted or not, your health, your inner peace, and your relationships. Okay. Good employees exit law firms and companies all the time. When I do exit interviews on the back end, I'll always ask, and I've stopped asking because I have enough data now. I used to say, but you just got a raise. Why are you quitting? And you're really at the top of the, heap. And people always say to me the same thing. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about being seen and heard. And that always speaks to the emotions involved, right? People want something different, want a different experience. So, how many of you have ever felt conflicted or torn in your careers, in your roles as leaders or managers? And have you had employees quit all of a sudden or be prone to outbursts where people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody said that in a meeting, or I can't believe that that conversation happened. Or, I mean, when I was a securities lawyer, I lived in a world, not at our firm, but at a big firm that's still around. The partner in charge of the investment management section at that other firm used to throw staplers, not staples, but the actual stapler, heavy stapler, at people as they came through his door. Talk about being ruled by your negative emotions. Now, at that level, people wouldn't say anything, but I think that's so outrageous. That was the toxic culture that everybody was forced to produce and bill at in a law firm. And you think this was back then? This stuff is still going on. I mean, we see it all the time. I had a client who was a CEO, still is a CEO, and spent years working with him. He was always angry at his wife, and it always showed up in the business somehow. And it always infiltrated his level of commitment to the people around him, to his employees, to his relationships. And there was this deep anger underlying everything. And that's what we worked on for years and years. Another example, I have a client who was taught growing up, don't show emotions. Emotions don't belong in business. Well, now he's super high in the business, CFO of a large defense contractor. And he was having a meeting with one of his employees, which is what prompted him to come coach with me. And his employee looked at him and said, brave employee, right? Looked at him and said, I don't know what that look on your face implies. I don't know what you're saying. And my client said, I was just stunned in that moment. I said, what do you mean? He said, we can't read you. We don't understand what you're trying to convey. Great feedback, right? This client said to me, I was always taught to have like a very neutral, stoic face and not show emotions in business. I said, see, the result is your employees are not inspired by you because they can't even get on the same page with you and understand what you're trying to convey to them. They can't execute on you what you're asking them to do because you're not readable, and that feels uncomfortable. People don't feel safe in work environments like that. Was this client like that at all? In fact, it was the opposite. I mean, once you got to know him, I enjoyed working with him so much, created a very safe space to be coached in for himself. Very caring, very considerate, but had been taught to show up like this, right? And then it didn't help that he was the big guy, right? So man or woman employees did not ever feel comfortable. Another example, I have a senior level executive. So she's in charge of a lot of people. This level of being ruled by her own negative emotions pervades. Oftentimes when her boss gives her feedback, and her boss is right below the CEO, she gets very emotional and she can't control it. And so we spent a lot of time working on that, of why is this happening? Where is this happening? What's this reminding you of? And digging deep into that. And here's another example. Me, myself, and I, back in the day when I was a practicing lawyer, I remember, you guys, vividly sitting at my desk in tears one day when I was at the law firm. I was supposed to be billing, but I was just sitting there with the lights off in my office with the door shut, crying because of a whole number of things. It doesn't even matter what the topic was. But the point, and I'm not hiding that from you, it's just irrelevant. The point was that I, an adult, a senior lawyer, was sitting in my office crying with the door shut because I couldn't let anybody see, right? Because it was so unprofessional. And yet, what was the result of those tears? Felt very dramatic because I wasn't letting anyone support me, because I wasn't letting anyone see that I was crying, because I didn't want to be a girl about it, right? Or let my emotions dictate things. So these are all examples of how this stuff shows up in the business world and how it sets back quality growth by companies and by people. And then guess what? We take all this stuff home. We take it all home to our families because that's where it came from. The baggage just kind of goes back and forth. Think of a giant suitcase that you just wheel back and forth between home and work because you're not willing to look at all this. So, when you identify your negative emotional patterns, you'll be able to succeed more in your business, whether you're an employee or a leader, and you'll be able to create the 2026, the extraordinary life that you want out of 2026. Okay? And it's good when you succeed more in your business and in your life, right? That's a good thing. All right. So let's talk about what specifically this is. You're going to do great at this. All of this stuff I just talked about, it doesn't have to stay that way, you guys. Real growth comes from shortening. Listen up, please closely. Real growth comes from shortening your negative emotional reaction time. Okay? Emotionally intelligent people are able to have a negative emotion come up at work. They get angry because their boss says something to them. They identify it, and then they can feel it and manage it and put it away. That's called emotional intelligence. So we want you to practice shortening the reaction time you have when a negative emotion is triggered. Today's part one of that. Before you can do all that, you got to be aware of it. Otherwise, it's just you're doing the same stuff in 2026 and you're getting no results. We don't want that. You're better than that in 2026. You hear me? Okay, so step up. So when you allow yourself to feel uncomfortable, I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you feel uncomfortable so that you become great, okay? When you allow yourself to feel your uncomfortable emotions instead of resisting them and pushing away from them, like most of us do, we're like, oh, anger. I'm either going to have an outburst because that's the easiest way of expressing myself. And then I feel like totally in control. I used to do that all the time, you guys. It's terrible, terrible. Or I'm going to feel sadness and I'm just going to go inside and I'm going to resist it that way. When you feel it, get uncomfortable with it instead of resisting it, then here's what happens. Here's the beautiful part. You gain the power to move through those negative emotions. And when you have that power, you're in control, you're sovereign. If you're an employee, your work product becomes so much better because you're choosing to be there. And if you're a leader, you're inspiring people to learn from watching what you're doing. They might not even know that that's what you're doing. It doesn't matter. They're inspired into action now, and that's what happens. So discomfort actually becomes a doorway to clarity, to choice, and to change. Clarity, choice, change. 3 C's. Here's your 4th C that feeds all of that. Courage. If you're not courageous, it ain't going to happen. So you want to feel this uncomfortable that I'm talking about and get really uncomfortable with it and then be brave enough to move through it. Word of the year for me this year, guess what? It's courage. I don't know what your word of the year is, but if you want courage because you're here and listening to this stuff, have it. It's good for you. Okay. So many high achievers don't realize that they're burnt out. Whether you're listening as an employee or as a leader to me right now, high achievers don't generally know that they're burnt out because they're still performing. Their baseline for stress is super high. You know what I'm talking about. You know your baseline for stress is super high and you're a high achiever experiencing burnout. How? The simplest way is when you go on vacation. Have you ever felt it? You go on vacation and the first thing that happens to you is you shut down or you get sick. And Why? Well, because you've released all that stress, because you've been so much of a high achiever and the burnout's been so great that your body just releases it all. It's a somatic experience you're having. Okay. So high achievers in burnout are still meeting their deadlines. Barely. You got to wonder, if we weren't in burnout, how much better our productivity would be and how much better we could run the processes that are being asked of us. We're still showing up for others because we're forced to. It's not because we want to, but it's an obligation, right? Ugh. And we're barely keeping it together for ourselves. It's like there's crazy glue involved here to keep our stuff together. Okay. Yet when you look under it, which is why you're here, something feels extremely out of whack, out of balance, right? Something is just off about you. I know that feeling. I'm always tapped into that. The bigger picture is called regulation, dysregulated. Your nervous system is dysregulated, and you're trying to work that way, or you're trying, excuse me, to run a business that way, a segment of a company that way, and have people report to you that way. How is that possible? So leaders often don't catch these subtle cues with their employees that there's something wrong, something's off. We call it performance reviews, and we pip everyone out. Performance review language, for those of you who are wondering. Performance improvement plan is what PIP stands for. You might have been pipped out of somewhere. You might be pipping people. It's not the ideal answer. HR would tell you, and lawyers would tell you, do it that way. However, I want you to be that leader that catches things beforehand, before all of that has to happen, so that it's easy. And then if you're that employee that gets feedback around that, then that's easier too than much later being surprised by being either pipped in or out, or actually it's just pipped out. Or having to feel the trauma and the shame and the guilt that we often feel when we're exited out of a role, when we were really wedded to it, or we thought we were. Okay. All right. Where am I? So, really, what we're doing, really next in 2 weeks when we meet, is training your body to live in a state of, oh, you've heard it. Shonda Rhimes talks about it. Joe Dispenza talks about it. I talk about it. It's the universal truth, flow. Training your body to be in a state of flow where you're calm, you're congruent, you're collected, and you live in a state of creation. What does that mean? That means you're able to see from your creative right brain. You show up from, and people are inspired. There's positive emotions involved there, and you're not coming from burnout or stress. And you do that in order to succeed. And that's what we're training your body to do. Okay. Attachment to negative emotions, drama, can only be broken if you understand, though, your emotional patterns. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. Otherwise, it just lives as drama. Okay, those negative emotional patterns, if you understand them, you feel them, you deal with them, you conquer them, you move through them. Otherwise, they become drama. And those are the people you see in the work environment who are dramatic, whether they're the employee or whether they're the boss. We can't say anything if they're the boss, but there's plenty of water cooler chatter still. And if you're the employee doing that, then you're creating a very difficult situation for yourself, where you're going to probably be pipped out of something. Okay. So, what is this about then? Understanding this attachment is about self-awareness. And everybody wants to run off from and flee from self-awareness, because self-awareness is painful, and self-awareness requires you to sit still and get quiet. And most of us are so externally motivated that we are ruled by the external world. That is so disempowering, you guys. Listen to me. Please take that in from a place of deep love that I have for you. When you're ruled constantly by the external world, you're not present, you're not self-aware, you can't make any positive change, and you cannot create a 2026 that you want. Okay. If that sounds harsh and cruel, so be it. I'll be the one that takes that on for you, because I'm saying it with true love and an open heart for you. Okay, so self-awareness. So here's the place to start. Let's talk about the how of this process, okay? So next time you feel off, okay, or dysregulated, or just let's just say you're plain old angry, sad, you feel hurt, you feel guilt ridden, you feel shame, or if you're the leader and you have any of those emotions come up, or you're off or dysregulated, or as the leader, if you're congruent and clear, start watching these emotional outlays and watching the emotional, physical, somatic behaviors of your employees and catch it, right, as the leader, so you can do something about it, so you can alert your employees. Now, a lot of you might be sitting there listening as leaders going, Tetsy, I'm not their therapist. I'm not their mother or their father. I'm their boss. I get it. I'm not asking you to be anybody's therapist or send them to therapy. Please don't coach them. Just know that if you want a high performing team, you got to understand that you've got a human being there and those emotions are going to be there and you can either catch it and alert them to it. And that's for a whole other conversation, how we do that, or you can ignore it and create a workplace culture that doesn't get you any added benefits, including increasing your bottom line. Okay. So if you're up for it, next time you feel off, you feel any of those negative emotions come up, here's the process I want you to go through. I want you to stop. And you're like, oh, stop. Yeah. You were running so hard. You've got to be able to stop and have self awareness to catch this. So, really, maybe you want to take a post it note and write down these steps and keep practicing, and then come back in 2 weeks and let's see how well it's worked for you. Step one, well, pre step one, you feel the negative emotion or you see it happening in your employees, you stop. Okay. Just get still. Step one, notice how you feel. Does it really serve you well to feel the anger or the fear or the shame or the hurt? Or is it something that you're used to? Let me say that again. Does that anger feel like it's something that's serving you well in the moment? Or the fear? And if you were running away from like the car that almost ran you over, that fear would serve you well. Okay. See the distinction for yourself. Or is this a pattern that you're just used to, responding and being triggered and being reactionary? Step two, get back into your body. This will help you identify what's going on. Somatically, stop and take 3 deep breaths. There's all sorts of ways people teach deep breathing. Go read up on it. I'm not going to take the time to teach you deep breathing right now, but just so you know, any kind of a breath that fills up from your diaphragm, brings it up to the top of your head, and then release externally with an open mouth. When you exhale with a closed mouth, you're generating more heat in the body. We don't want that. We don't want you all hot and bothered. We want you to release the energy out of your mouth. So whatever you're doing, inhale through your nose, hold, exhale through an open mouth. Okay. Put you back in your body. Step 3, then, where do you feel the emotions most in your body? This is where you're going to scan your body. I want you to close your eyes and scan and look for the emotion. Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Does it have a scent, stink to it, or maybe a different kind of feel? And is there a familiar memory attached to that emotion that you're finding in your body? That's where the baggage is coming up, okay? That's the stuff we deal in breakthrough sessions. If you're interested in the breakthrough sessions, text me, message me, and I'll tell you more about that. Let's stay focused here, though. We're just identifying it for now. Where do you feel the emotion most in your body? And is there some kind of a texture, color, a scent, some kind of an olfactory? We're getting all the senses involved, okay? Involved with it, okay? Step 4, write the stuff down. Take a minute, please, and write it down. I don't need you to have a fancy notebook or one for this process. Don't go into the details and get sidetracked. Just write it down somewhere. And then the last step, which is just about the most important step, you guys, is at the end of the day, stop at what you've written down. That's why it's important to write it down. Look for a pattern for yourself. Here's what you're looking for. Obviously, you're looking to identify the emotions. but you're also looking for the color, texture, familiar scent. You're also looking for this though. Who was there when you had this emotional response at work or at home? What was said that triggered you or triggered the other person? If you're a leader looking at this from your employee's perspective, I know you're like, why should I be doing this work for my employees? You're doing this work for you because these people do your work, do your bidding. And if you're not catching this for them, you can't make the change. They can only make the change. But if you notice this, this is the first step in creating a workforce that truly works for you, that allows you to shine because they're regulated well and they're stable. Okay. So look for the pattern. Who was there? What was said? What was the time of day associated with this? On top of where it was tracked in your body and whether there was an olfactory response to it, a color to it, a texture to that emotion that you found in your body. Okay. So these are the steps. Let me go over them one more time. Hopefully you're going to write these down. You're going to stop next time you feel off or dysregulated or just plain old angry, sad, shame, hurt, fearful. If you're the leader and that's not what you're experiencing, you're seeing it in your employees, stop and take notice. Step one, notice how you actually feel in the moment. Does it really serve you well to have this emotion? Or is it something that you're just used to? You're just like, I get angry when I hear so and so sing. It just makes me angry, right? I've had people that have said that. I have been that person for so long, you guys. Here's an example. Anyone that used to hum would make me crazy. Someone would hum. They weren't even humming to me, around me. They were just humming around me. I would go into a state of anger immediately. Okay. Does it really serve me well to get angry when someone is humming, or is it something that I'm used to because it's an old pattern of mine? So mine was an old pattern. It came from my past, my childhood. Well, first I had to name it. So that's step one. After you stop, you notice that you name it. Okay. Step two is get back into your body. Okay. Take those 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. Go Google how to do deep diaphragmatic breath work. That's not what I'm here to teach you right now, but it's important. Step 3, where do you feel the emotion most in your body? This somatic process is so important because the body stores the data and it's the easiest way to find it and deal with it, eradicate it. Okay. Great book written, Body Keeps Score. Can't remember the gentleman who wrote it, but if you want more on that, go read that. Okay. After you've scanned your body to find where the emotions lie, look for a color. Close your eyes, like, oh, anger in my heart. Is it red? Is it white? Does it have a texture to it? Is there a familiar memory with this? See what comes up. Do not disregard any of this. Your unconscious mind is pulling stuff up to show you. Don't ignore it. Don't let your life be the same in 2026 as it has been. Let it be different. Let yourself grow by trying something different on, okay? Next step, write all this stuff down. Take a minute and just notes. No one's going to look at your notes but you. Write this stuff down because you're going to need this data for the next step, the very last step. It's very important. At the end of the day, look at everything that happened emotionally that you wrote down and look for a pattern. Who was there? What was said? What was the time of day? What was it? Anger? And anger came up red in my heart and it kind of felt stinky. Or no, it was my solar plexus. It was down here. And both times that was my response to fear and sadness. Now, you're going to want to ignore all this and not do this because it's much easier to ignore it and not be able to even identify it. A lot of my clients, these are smart, talented, creative leaders that are making big changes in the world, will still say to me, when I say name the emotion, they'll say in our one-on-one coaching, they'll say, can you give me my list of emotions again, negative emotions? It's okay. You're not going to want to remember, but they're anger, fear, sadness, guilt, shame. And I think I'm leaving one off, hurt. Okay. And some of these can be intermixed, but for the most part, Please don't ignore this, okay? Work on this. All right. So, what did you learn from what we just talked about? What was the most important thing? If you're on live, drop it in the chat, let me know. As well as if you're here live, I'm here for Q&A. This is where we're going to stop for today, but ask me your questions. Let me know what's going on with you. Something I said didn't make sense. What did you learn? What do I need to know? What questions do you have? Let me know what's going on with you. That's the goal of being here live. And how can you make this process easy for yourself? Truly, this is not meant to be a difficult process. If you really, and this is not meant to be a resolution or something you're just gung-ho about in January, but January does carry the momentum. So how can you do this in small doses for yourself to get a big difference for yourself? Because you're worth it, okay? So January 27th, I want you back here, please. I want you to come back with some ideas of what it was like trying it on. And look, whatever you did with these steps, you can't get it wrong. Okay. So don't go into perfectionist mode. Just do the steps that I just laid out, let it play out the way it will. And it's good enough because you're putting effort in, and whatever you're doing is good enough. You're doing your best, and that's all we could ask for in the world. But show up here January 27th, because then what we're going to do is we're going to align your body with your mind so that your emotions support instead of sabotage your life. And that allows you to create that extraordinary year that you want, whether you're a leader, managing people and running a business or a law firm, or whether you're the employee. And this all has a ripple effect across your personal life, across your relationships. If you're looking to find a mate or a partner or have better dates, if you're looking to lose weight, if you're looking to, I don't know, what else are we all looking to do in our lives? Sleep better at night, honestly, have more inner peace, have better relationships with your family, get promoted, make more money. All of this is interrelated. And from my vantage point, it all hinges on your emotional intelligence. And the first place we start is by figuring out the negative emotions and aligning your body and mind so you're not self-sabotaging. All right. I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to email me, Ketty@puristconsulting.com, or leave a message here through my YouTube channel. And I thank you for showing up for yourself and for the world. And hey, why not? Why not you in 2026? We all have a purpose to serve in this world. It doesn't have to be a big, onerous one that's going to add stress to your life. But every time you show up and you up level, you're being more courageous and more brave, and you're making this world a better place. And isn't that a good thing? That should allow you to sleep well at night and make more money. All right. Until next time, Kathy G out. And if you got any questions, you know where to find me. Take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks.